A garbage collector stood at the gates of the city's most exclusive cemetery, rain streaming down his weathered face, and shouted words that stopped a billionaire's funeral. "She's not dead!" Everyone thought he was crazy. A homeless man disrupting the burial of Margaret Chen, the richest woman in the state. But what he revealed next would expose a truth that made millionaires weep and changed the meaning of wealth forever. Before we continue, if stories about unexpected heroes and hidden truths move you, please subscribe to Everyday Kindness Stories. We share tales that remind us what truly matters. The rain fell in sheets that Tuesday morning, as if the sky itself mourned Margaret Chen. Outside the iron gates of Willowbrook Cemetery, a line of black limousines stretched for nearly a mile. Inside each vehicle sat someone wealthy, someone powerful, someone who had once sought Margaret's favor or her fortune. Marcus Webb stood at the edge of the service road, his orange sanitation vest soaked through, his hands trembling. For 43 years he had collected garbage along Riverside Drive. For 43 years he had been invisible to everyone who mattered. Everyone except Margaret. He watched the pallbearers carry the mahogany casket, polished to a mirror shine, probably worth more than his entire year's salary. The priest's voice drifted through the rain, somber and rehearsed. Margaret's daughter, Victoria, stood beneath a black umbrella, her face carefully composed, her designer dress pristine despite the weather. Marcus had seen that face before, not in mourning but in calculation. His chest tightened, his throat burned. He thought of last Tuesday, just 7 days ago, when everything had been different. The morning had been unusually quiet on Riverside Drive. Marcus guided his truck along the familiar route, the mechanical arm lifting bins with practiced precision. He'd been doing this job since he was 22, when his daughter was just a baby and his wife was still alive. Now he was 65, alone, and counting down the days until a retirement that would barely cover his rent. He stopped at the Chen estate, as he did every Tuesday. The mansion rose behind its gates like something from a movie, all glass and marble, with a garden that probably employed more people than his entire sanitation crew. That's when he saw her. Margaret Chen sat on a stone bench near the service gate, partially hidden by an ancient oak tree. She wasn't wearing the elegant suits he'd seen in newspapers. Instead, she wore a simple cardigan and slacks, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. She was crying. Marcus had learned long ago not to stare at rich people. They didn't like being seen, especially not by people like him. But something about the way her shoulders shook, the way she pressed her hand against her mouth to muffle the sound, it reminded him of his wife in those last days, when the cancer had taken everything but her tears. He parked the truck and approached slowly. "Ma'am, are you all right?" She looked up, startled. Her eyes were red, her face pale. For a moment she seemed ready to dismiss him, to retreat behind the wall that separated people like her from people like him. Then she smiled, sad, and somehow relieved. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just needed air. No need to apologize." Marcus stayed a respectful distance away. "Sometimes fresh air is the only thing that helps. Do you ever feel," she said softly, "like you've built something massive and beautiful, only to realize it's completely empty inside?" Marcus thought of his studio apartment, his ancient TV, his refrigerator with its expired milk and leftover takeout. He thought of his daughter, who had moved to California and called maybe twice a year. He thought of his wife's grave, which he visited every Sunday with grocery store flowers. "I think," he said carefully, "that empty is relative, ma'am." She laughed, a real laugh that surprised them both. "You're right. God, you're right." She wiped her eyes. "What's your name?" "Marcus Webb, Margaret Chen." She extended her hand. Her grip was firm, genuine. "Thank you, Marcus, for not walking away. We all need someone sometimes." Over the next few weeks, their Tuesday morning conversations became routine. Margaret would wait by the service gate, 2 cups of coffee in hand, one for her, one for Marcus. They talked about everything and nothing: his late wife, her absent children, his love of old jazz records, her regret over missed opportunities. "My daughter visits once a month," Margaret confessed one morning, "always with her lawyer, always asking about the will, the foundation, the investments. She hasn't asked how I'm doing in 5 years." Marcus understood. His own daughter had stopped asking about his health after his wife died. It was easier for her, he supposed, to imagine him as a constant. Unchanging, unbreaking, always there. Money's funny that way, Marcus said. It attracts everyone except the people who actually care about you. Margaret studied him with sharp, intelligent eyes. You're a wise man, Marcus Webb. I'm a garbage collector, ma'am. Some of the wisest people I've known collected garbage, drove trucks, cleaned floors. She sipped her coffee. They understood something my Harvard graduates never did, that value and worth aren't the same thing. On their last Tuesday together, Margaret seemed different. Lighter somehow, as if she'd made a decision. She handed Marcus an envelope. What's this? He asked. A gift, for your kindness. Ma'am, I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Her smile was mysterious. I've made some changes, Marcus. Important ones. If anything happens to me, I want you to know something. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Not everything is as it seems. And sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who want us gone. Marcus felt a chill despite the summer heat. Mrs. Chen, promise me something. If you hear that I've died, question it. Question everything. She gripped his hand. Promise me. I promise. She nodded, satisfied, and walked back through her gates for the last time. Now Marcus stood in the rain, watching them lower Margaret into the ground. Inside the envelope she'd given him was a check, $50,000 with a note for your retirement with gratitude. He'd been so shocked he'd nearly dropped it. He'd planned to thank her this Tuesday, to tell her it was too much, that he couldn't accept it. But Tuesday never came. Instead, he'd gotten a newspaper notification on his phone. Billionaire philanthropist Margaret Chen dies in her sleep at 68. The article mentioned her business empire, her charitable foundation, her tragic early widowhood. It mentioned Victoria Chen, her sole heir, who would inherit an estimated $4.3 billion. It mentioned nothing suspicious, nothing wrong. But Marcus remembered Margaret's words question everything. So he'd made phone calls. He'd talked to the estate gardener, who mentioned that Mrs. Chen had seemed perfectly healthy the day before she died. He'd contacted the housekeeper, who said Victoria had visited the night before, unusual since she normally came during business hours with her lawyer. He'd spoken to Margaret's personal physician, who admitted, off the record, that he hadn't seen her in weeks, that she'd been in excellent health, and that he'd been shocked to sign the death certificate based solely on Victoria's insistence that her mother had died peacefully in her sleep. Did you examine the body? Marcus had asked. A long pause. The family requested a closed casket immediately. They said Mrs. Chen wouldn't have wanted people to see her that way. Now Marcus watched the priest sprinkle holy water on the casket. He watched Victoria dab her eyes with a handkerchief, her grief perfectly performed. And he thought about the sleeping pills he'd seen in Victoria's purse once, months ago, when she'd visited and left. It opened on the garden bench. He thought about the life insurance policies Margaret had mentioned, the ones Victoria had tried to increase just last year. He thought about Margaret's final words, sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who want us gone. His hands formed fists. His heart raced. Every instinct told him to stay quiet, to stay invisible, to let the rich bury their dead and handle their own affairs. But Marcus hadn't survived 65 years by ignoring his instincts. And something was desperately, terribly wrong. He pushed through the cemetery gates. Are you still watching? If this story has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like and share. And stay with us. What happens next will shock you. Stop! Marcus's voice cut through the rain like a blade. Stop this funeral right now. Heads turned, shocked faces. A security guard started toward him, but Marcus was already running, his boots splashing through puddles, his breath ragged. She's not dead, he shouted. Margaret Chen is not dead! The priest froze. The pallbearers exchanged glances. Victoria's face went pale, then red. How dare you, she hissed. Security! Remove this man immediately! But Marcus was faster. He reached the casket, his hand slamming against the polished wood. Open it! Open it right now! This is outrageous, Victoria said, her voice shaking. This man is clearly disturbed. He's... I'm the garbage collector your mother had coffee with every Tuesday for 3 months. Marcus turned to face the crowd. I'm the person she trusted with the truth, and I'm telling you, all of you, that something is wrong. A murmur rippled through the mourners. The priest looked uncertain. The funeral director approached, hands raised in a placating gesture. Sir, I understand you're upset, but did anyone actually see the body? Marcus demanded. Did anyone besides Victoria verify that Margaret Chen was dead? Silence. The doctor signed the certificate without examining her, Marcus continued. The family insisted on an immediate closed casket. No autopsy, no investigation, just a quick burial and a $4.3 billion inheritance. Victoria's lawyer stepped forward, his face stern. Mr. Webb, these accusations are defamatory. We could have you arrested, then arrest me, but open that casket first. The crowd was murmuring now, loud enough that Victoria couldn't ignore it. Marcus saw doubt on their faces, questions forming. These were Margaret's business associates, her board members, people who knew her reputation for thoroughness and her famous distrust of her own daughter. This is absurd, Victoria said, but her voice cracked. My mother is dead. I was with her. I watched her take her last breath. I held her hand as she... Then prove it, Marcus said quietly. Open the casket. Let us see her. Let a real doctor examine her. What do you have to lose unless you're lying? Victoria's face went through a series of expressions: shock, rage, fear. Finally, she nodded to the funeral director. Fine. Open it. Let this lunatic see that my mother is dead and then arrest him for harassment. The funeral director approached the casket slowly. He released the latches. The lid began to rise. Marcus's heart hammered. What if he was wrong? What if grief and suspicion had driven him mad and Margaret really was dead and he was just a foolish old man disrupting her funeral? The lid opened fully. The casket was empty, not even a body, just white satin lining and a single envelope resting where Margaret's hands should have been crossed. Gasps echoed across the cemetery. Victoria's face went sheet white. Her lawyer grabbed her arm, whispering urgently. Security guards looked at each other, uncertain who to arrest or what to do. Marcus reached into the casket with trembling hands and lifted the envelope. It was addressed to him. He opened it. Inside was a letter in Margaret's elegant handwriting. My dear Marcus, if you're reading this, then my plan worked. I'm writing this from a beach in Costa Rica, very much alive and probably drinking something with an umbrella in it. I've spent the last 6 months testing my daughter. I changed my will to leave everything to my foundation. With only a small trust for Victoria, I hired a private investigator to watch her, and I made it clear that I was in perfect health and planned to live for many more years. Her response? She tried to kill me. Sleeping pills in my evening tea, carefully dosed over weeks. My doctor found them in my blood work. My investigator caught her buying more. My lawyer documented everything. I couldn't have her arrested without proof of actual harm. Attempted murder is hard to prosecute when the victim is still alive. So I staged my own death. I needed to see what she would do, how far she would go to claim her inheritance. I needed the world to see. You, Marcus, were the key. You were the only person in my life who wanted nothing from me. The only one I could trust completely. I knew you'd remember our conversations. I knew you'd question. I knew you'd care enough to act. In this envelope, you'll also find a flash drive. It contains video evidence of Victoria's attempts to poison me, recordings of her conversations with her lawyer about contesting my will, and financial records showing she's been embezzling from my foundation for years. Show it to the police. Let justice be done. As for me, I'm starting over. New name, new life, new purpose. I'm going to spend my remaining years actually living, not just existing in a golden cage. The $50,000 I gave you was a test. I wanted to see if you'd cash it. You didn't. You kept it, waiting to thank me properly. That's the kind of man you are. I've arranged for an additional gift, enough to buy a house, to retire comfortably, to visit your daughter, to finally live the life you've spent 65 years earning. My lawyer will contact you. Thank you, Marcus Webb. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for caring when no one else did. Thank you for being proof that good people still exist. With all my gratitude, Margaret Marcus's hands shook as he read the letter aloud to the crowd. By the time he finished, Victoria was in handcuffs, her lawyer was fleeing toward his car, and the mourners were staring at the empty casket in stunned silence. The police arrived within minutes. Margaret's investigator had been waiting nearby, ready to intervene if needed. The flash drive contained everything: clear video of Victoria crushing pills into her mother's tea, audio recordings of her discussing accelerating the inheritance timeline, bank statements showing systematic theft. It was over. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the porch of his new house, a small cottage by the ocean, nothing fancy, but his, truly his. The mortgage was paid, the furniture was comfortable, the refrigerator was full. His daughter had visited last week, shocked by the sudden change in his circumstances. They'd talked for hours, really talked, the way they hadn't since her mother died. She'd cried and apologized for her absence. He'd held her and told her it was okay, that they could start fresh. On his kitchen table sat a postcard from Costa Rica. No return address, but he recognized the handwriting. "The sunsets here are beautiful. Thank you for everything. M." Marcus smiled and tucked it into his pocket. He walked down to the beach, his bare feet sinking into the sand. The waves rolled in, endless and patient. Seabirds called overhead. He thought about Margaret. Somewhere under these same stars, finally free. He thought about Victoria, in a cell awaiting trial, learning too late that money can't buy integrity. He thought about all the Tuesday mornings, the simple gift of being seen. A young woman jogged past, her dog bounding beside her. She waved, and Marcus waved back. He was no longer invisible, but more importantly, he was no longer alone. The evening air smelled of salt and possibility. Marcus breathed deeply, feeling his heart expand with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that truth and goodness can triumph against all odds, don't forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to Everyday Kindness Stories. We tell the kinds of stories that heal, uplift, and remind us what it means to be truly human. We'll see you in the next one, where another unexpected hero waits to be discovered. Good people still exist in this world. People like Marcus who see injustice and refuse to stay silent. Sometimes the wealthiest among us are spiritually bankrupt, while those we overlook possess riches that can't be measured. True wealth isn't in bank accounts or inheritances. It's in the courage to speak truth, the wisdom to recognize real friendship, and the heart to care when no one else will. Your story matters too. Stay vigilant, stay kind, stay true. Kindness sees what others miss. Integrity speaks when others stay silent. And sometimes being ordinary, being overlooked, underestimated, invisible, is exactly what allows extraordinary truth to emerge. The garbage collector stopped a funeral because he paid attention when no one else did. He cared when caring was inconvenient. He acted when silence would have been easier. That's not just a story about one man. That's a reminder to all of us. Someone is always watching. Someone always cares. And sometimes that someone is waiting to save a life or expose a lie if we're brave enough to listen.